see that commercial?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, call the meeting to order. Those who care to, please stand for an opening prayer and pledge allegiance. Mr. Cameron, if you would.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day, and Lord, we just thank you for this city. We pray, Lord, that you just guide and direct us in all that we do and say. We pray for our national leaders and our state leaders, Lord, that you would guide and direct them as well. Be with us tonight as we do the work of this city, and just guide and direct us in all we do and all we say. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to open citizen participation. Anyone wishing to speak to anything not on the agenda, please step to the podium, state your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes.
My name is Steve Forbes. I live at 115 East Miller Road. Tonight, what I wanted to come in and address the council about goes back to before Christmas on the Miller Road project. And the Miller Road project that we're talking about is the low-income senior housing that they're going to that they voted for 7-1 to put in right there on Miller Road. What I wanted to do, and I know we're in it's a situation where, you know, it doesn't change anything by me coming in here and addressing the council, but what I want to do is I would hope that you would think next time something like this comes up, think and kind of look at the people that have opposition to it. I spoke about it. My wife spoke about it a couple of times to the council. My mother spoke. Betty North spoke a couple of times, in opposition. Now, I know that as far as for it, Miss Poole is the only one that I know that spoke for it other than the developers. And the main thing that, we live in a society now where things like this happen and people come in with guns and start shooting people and have all kinds of violence, or you have people that get on the internet and start bashing people, or they write letters to the newspaper bashing people or put up big billboards. And what I wanted to do was just come in, address everyone, in a situation where I could look you in the eye and just talk to you. And hope that if we're in a situation like this that occurs again, that you'll think twice about it. Also, as far as opposition, Betty North kind of spearheaded this, and I passed out some papers where we got notarized papers from basically all of the property owners that surround that property, stating their opposition to putting this in. And, our city planners, say it's a great idea, this is a great thing, to do for Republic as far as the low-income senior housing that we need it. And I don't refute that. We do need it. It's just not really the right place. And it comes down to the reason that it went into that place, and the big thing was money. Because, it's a lot cheaper to put it in that area than what it would have been to put it in an area that would have actually probably been a little bit better, which everybody in here knows the green space that we have that would probably be better, but it's property that's more expensive. But the main thing that I would like to talk to people about and for you to think about is the next time this comes up. There was something that came up the week before that they voted down because there was a gentleman that was wanting to put a real estate office in a house. And several people right here will think back to that. And I remember him saying that, I wouldn't want to live right next door to a business. Well, that's what I'm going to live right next door to, is a business, because that's what it is. It's a business that's renting out, housing to 40, families. And I would want you to think about this. Think about you. And, I've lived in Republic. I've been a citizen of Republic for 51 years. 51 years ago, we moved over to the house on the corner of Miller Road and P Highway. I built my home 21 years ago where it stands at 115 East Miller Road. And I just want you to think about, if something's going to go into your neighborhood and affect your neighborhood like this, wouldn't it bother you when you think about your property values? And I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen to my property values, but I just know a lot of times, anytime we have low income housing, that a lot of times that property is just not kept up maybe the way that it should be. And I want you to think about that next time you make a vote, because you did think about it the week before when you said, well, I wouldn't want to live next to a business because they're wanting to put a real estate office in this house. I wouldn't want to live next to that. This is basically the same thing. And like I said, do we need housing for the seniors? We do. Just probably not the right spot for it right there. So that's kind of the main reason that I wanted to come in. And I know my 5 minutes is up. But anytime something like this comes before you again, and you think about it, and you hear opposition with people coming in and talking, and you get those signed, notarized papers on people that don't want it, I want you to think about it. If I were in their position, what would I want? And I'd like to thank Charlie Brashears for his vote of no. I appreciate that, Charlie. I appreciate you focusing in on that and thinking about that, because that was the right thing. And I just feel that the other was not the correct way to do it, but it has no bearing now. But I hope in the future that you'll think about those things before you vote, because that vote is a mighty pin whenever you strike it, especially against people that have lived there all their lives. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak to anything not on the agenda, please step to the podium, state your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes. Seeing none, citizen participation is closed. Moving on, I need a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Motion carries 6-0 with 2 abstentions. On to board commission committee schedule of note city council meeting. The next one will be February 19th, 2019, back here at City Hall as we're moved back in. Followed by March 5th, 2019. Planning and zoning is set to meet March 11th, 2019 here as well. Moving on to old business and tabled items, I need a motion and a second for the second reading of bill number 19-01.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Mr. Ison?
Bill number 19-01, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, amending Chapter 405 zoning regulations, Article 3 zoning districts, use and regulations by repealing Section 405.185 CO Commercial Overlay District.
Thank you. I need a motion and a second for final passage of bill number 19-01.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Tyson, we have 2 council members absent for the last meeting. Would you mind giving us a brief overview?
Yep, you bet. What this particular code section does is it acts as an overlay over the city's major transportation corridors. It's a zoning district, but it's an overlay zoning district. So you keep the zoning districts like C2 or C3 or C1 underneath it. This overlays those districts, and it applies additional regulations that don't apply unless you're in that overlay district. Those regulations being restrictions on the types of materials that you can use on the facade of commercial and multifamily buildings along those corridors. Staff is recommending the repeal of those regulations, largely because the impacts that we have assessed of those regulations since they have been enacted. Like I expressed at the last council meeting, I believe these are regulations crafted and adopted with good intentions. However, they just haven't been effective given that intent. Instead, they have caused probably more problems and more costs than they have generated benefit for the community. So the recommendation is for repeal. I described at the last meeting some of how logistically these things work and how these are often perceived as being very subjective regulations by property owners and by the development community that are very difficult to justify. And largely because the type of material you use on your facade is just, quite honestly, not determinative of whether your building will be appealing or not. You could use a prohibited material and you could use a permitted material, and it's not a guarantee that your building will be pleasing or unpleasing. The impacts have been an erosion of trust, a lot of suspicion, and not a lot of benefit to show for having these regulations in place. We also discussed at the last council meeting that there is, the repeal of these regulations does not result in, a perfect world. There's also some risk in repealing it, although my assessment is that risk is very low compared to the rewards of the repeal. So the recommendation is for repeal. The recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission is for repeal, though also, like I mentioned at the last council meeting, if you read through those finding of facts, you can sort of discern from what they wrote that although they recommended repeal of the regulations, you'll pick up in what they wrote that they also were nervous or concerned for the potential of some ugly building being built in the future in the absence of these regulations.
Thank you, sir. Questions, comments, concerns from council? Mr. Self.
This has been a pain point for some years, and so I appreciate you bringing it to us. Speaking with other people in the business community that live here, I mean, this is a good thing for them, so I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion from council? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dykeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Brashears.
Aye.
Councilmember Russell.
Aye.
Councilmember Franklin.
Aye.
Councilmember Jones.
Aye.
Councilmember Self.
Aye.
Councilmember Duran.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. Moving on to new business. I need a motion and a second for the first reading of bill number 19-02.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries 8-0. Mr. Tyson.
Bill number 19-02, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, approving the final plat of the trails at Valley Park Phase 1.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Haynes.
Good evening. Thank you. The final plat that you have before you tonight is for approximately 12.34 acres of land in the Valley Trails PDD. This final plat will include 30 residential lots and include the dedication of water and sanitary sewer extensions and also utility access easements. Staff is currently working with the developers and their design team to finalize the final plat, and also that would include the dedication language regarding both public and private aspects of the subdivision, some general notes that need to be added to the plat, maintenance bonding, and also final inspections. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anything, questions, comments, concerns from council? Quite lunchtime. Seeing none, remember this is the first read. If you have any questions between now and February 19th, please get with Ms. Haynes. Thank you. Moving on to resolutions. Resolution number 19-R-05, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, approving billing adjustments for water and sewer services. Need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Mr. Cameron?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as everyone is aware, the city has gone through a billing transition in the community. And in the process of that billing transition, it has been very apparent that there has been that our process change has negatively impacted our community and our citizens. And so there's a lot of frustration, confusion, and disappointment with the way that rolled out. There are a number of factors that affected that process, but me as a resident or even as a consumer, you don't want to hear a lot of excuses of what that is. But during the transition, we went through the software transition. We were doing the work on the City Hall building. We had the mold remediation, just as it was like all at the same time. And then on top of that, there's been billing issues in general in the utility billing cycle for a number of years. And so finding where all the routes were, missing meters, people getting bills that were 7 weeks old. So basically 1 month they're not getting a bill, which is what the project was. What was having challenges was the meter readers getting to those actual spots to read those meters were 7 weeks out. So in consideration of, just like it was when I first got married and somebody sends me a bill that's twice what it is, and it's like almost 2 months worth of usage, it creates a financial hardship on our citizens. Some of them, not all, but several, recognized, and to me that just, it starts to erode the trust that billing system is not effective. But however, the transition to the new billing software will be much better, much more efficient, much more reliable. But during that transition, it has been very apparent that we stubbed our toe pretty good and created a lot of hardship that should not have been there. And most likely we could have done a much better job of implementing that rolling that out and having the processes in place. The second piece that was missing was our phone system. So when people were calling to ask questions about that implementation, they were getting a busy signal or not getting anyone at all. And so I don't know if you've ever experienced that personally yourself, but I'll tell you what happens with me. I get very frustrated. I want to have a level of service. And quite frankly, internally with our team and the way we go about how we've led the city, it just fell short of the expectations that we set for ourselves. And so when we saw the next billing cycle that was going to be going out this week had 5 weeks and 6 weeks, we believed that there was a responsibility on our part to act in alignment with our vision, which is to do the right thing at the right time for the right reason. And with our carrying value, that we recognize that we've got to own it when we make these missteps. And so we put together a package that would issue a 25% credit to all of our residents, to every resident, over 2 billing cycles. So it'd be 12.5% for, I guess it'd be February and then in March. And it would start immediately starting tomorrow on the first billing cycle. So people that see a 5 or 6 week bill will actually see a 12.5% credit, so the hardship is not near as hard as seeing a $125 bill versus $70. There is a financial impact to us of almost $100,000 to possibly $120,000 to do this. This would come out of the sewer budget. We would adjust the budget accordingly to make up for the difference, so that it's not impacting, or we're not raising rates to adjust, like, okay, so what you're going to do is raise my rate to make up for this. This is a 25% discount for the inconvenience that was created as we transition forward. The value of our trust with the organization or with the community is far more valuable than those funds, and so I believe that is why that the idea of presenting this to the community and establishing that we will do the right thing and we will admit that we have made some missteps is the basis for doing this. And so that is why we're presenting it and asking for your consideration to provide this to our community. What would come with this, should you approve it, is tonight we will roll out a message from myself to the community that will basically essentially say, you know, we stubbed our toe, and in consideration of that, we want to do the right thing. And just take ownership and just say this is where it's at. Where we're at currently, the adjustments that have been made internally. Nixa, thank you to the city of Nixa. They provided us 3 additional reading systems. We borrowed from them. So Andrew, thank you for that. Andrew has assumed the ownership now of the meter reading, so the meter readers now are reporting directly to the water department. And so the water department last weekend went out and got the meters and all the routes caught up. And so what's happening is in the new software, and so this is what's interesting, is you might find meters that were never even either being read or even in the system. So people are going to see what's not there. So we're actually cleaning up something. I mean, it's been going on for several years. I've heard the complaints about the billing system since I arrived, but I also heard the complaints about our phone system and people not being able to get in contact with us. So a lot of this is really will only make us stronger. But thanks to Jason Davis and company and the billing staff, they went through a lot of transition. This is not for a lack of effort. It was just a lack of process to handle the influx of what was taking place. And it just got on top and it grew, and those routes got longer. And then what should have been 1 month is now taking 2 months. So 2 months. And so in March, that will be lined out, and so everybody will be on a 30-day billing cycle rather than a 50 or 60-day billing cycle. So, and I'd be more happy to take any questions or answer any questions that you have.
Anything from council? Any questions, Franklin?
If it mentions in here, cuts to the wastewater department, are we kind of have any knowledge of where that cut would come from if we need to make that?
Well, it'd be what we were doing in this year's budget. We were actually paying off the wastewater plant, but what happened was, we had taken a pretty aggressive approach to pull out another $435,000 in ballpark. However, we did receive our reimbursement check for $380,000 from the Garden Business Park, so that helped increase our fund balance. Water cannot take any type of hit, so all of it is coming out of the sewer budget. Water is, because we have not raised rates, we've kept that at a, cost, revenue. It cannot absorb any type of thing, but the wastewater side, pretty much, I believe we can cash flow it. If not, it would just move about $50,000, $60,000 into 2020, which is when the wastewater plant was supposed to be paid off anyway. Versus, so that would be what the impact would be, is just paying that off early in 2020 instead of all in 2019. I still hope that we'll pay it off in 2019. So, it will not impact the development that we're trying to continue to grow. It's just we're gonna tighten the belt so that there's not try to push things off 1 year that we can. But our objective is still to get out of debt on the wastewater plant.
Any other questions?
I love the idea of saying, hey, our bad, and let's fix it. I do the same thing in my business. Are the problems addressed to the point where we feel like we've come to an end of the problems and we're not halfway through this saying our bad?
What great question. So tomorrow's billing, so basically the billing should have gone out today. When I recognized that problem was not addressed, still there was going to be a bill that was going to go out that was going to be another week of phone calls, messages that was and just difficulty. We needed to act to say, listen, we recognize that this is going to be another one. So the next billing cycle, in the messaging that's going out, it says your next bill, you will still see dates. However, in the March, there'll be some that still, it's very confusing. So we'll do this, but that's why we're doing it over the 2-month billing cycle. They will see a decrease, and most likely in March, they'll actually see a below normal bill. So they're used to seeing $70. They'll see a 12.5% decrease. So they'll actually see in March a significant change that will help. But what I'm saying is we do this tonight, there will still be the second half of the community that'll see, okay, I've got 45 days in my billing cycle this time, and it'll show like maybe $120. But we'll reduce it by 12.5% to help to get it more to the normal range. They still will see some, but this will be the last billing cycle that goes out this week. And so, yeah, with what Jason and them have done, they've got 10 guys that have basically put all their effort. We pulled off of one project to get all the routes caught up so that we're not 3 weeks behind. You also approved us to hire another meter tech in the budget. So hopefully we'll get that position filled. But, yeah, so I believe that this will not be oops, we missed it by 30 days again. People may have trouble still logging on and say, hey, I want to understand the software and what I'm doing. It's much more user-friendly. But I want to deal with those issues on their own versus we just added an additional 3 weeks to your bill. And so it should have only lasted 1 month and it carried into 2. That's why I believe we need to do something about it. But yes, to answer that question, we're caught up.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones?
There still are some citizens that are convinced that they're being billed double month over month. Are we certain that those situations don't truly exist and it was merely because of, okay.
Yeah, well, cause see, what it is, it looks like a double bill. Some of those people have 7 weeks. So if you're paying $70 and you're almost at, say, add another 35, you're running into 105. It looks like, man, my bill is, or not the 105, it'd be more than that. But there are some that, I mean, these are people that I know as well, they're calling, you know, like, hey, my bill went to $130 and it's normally 70. Well, you look at the bill and it's 7 weeks in the billing cycle, and that's just, there's some that can endure that, and just something's like, that's just a huge hit. But it's not a double, it looks like it's a double bill in one time.
Right, but I mean, I've actually spoken to some that are convinced that it's happened 2 times in a row, which doesn't sound like what exactly happened in the scenarios that have been described to me. Are we certain that we don't have other anomalies that are occurring where people are getting billed more than just, okay,
Debbie,
it's
you
more
wanna-
time frame
Yeah.
involved?
Debbie, you want to answer that? Because we've been reaching out to those folks whenever those comments come in.
Okay.
That's the other piece that I want to add to this is in the transition with staffing. You've got people that were in that office, they're shorthanded because we have FMLA issues where people, I can't discuss why they're out, but just a shortage of that. But those comments were going to emails where people were not here. So one of the things that we're establishing is an email address for a customer service deal that could go to 3 or 4 different people to address it. So whoever's out, Debbie can get it. So basically, when those questions come in, we can research into, hey, yes, there's an anomaly into that. We can address it and move forward. But I'll let Debbie answer that question as to what she's finding in those in regards to that question.
To address that, we have this week, since we're through the big crisis part, we're now starting to go through all the billing just to make sure no one was, because we have listened to the complaints, and so we're going through anyone who has called us and who has concerns. We are actually researching and sending meter texts as they're available to go back out and research to make sure there wasn't a glitch with the software. So far, I haven't found any that were actual glitches with software. So far, there's been a few things that were confused meter readings, but we are going through and fixing all of those. And so even if we don't get them resolved this month, within a month or 2, they should all be fully addressed and resolved. And so if you, oh, sorry.
Debbie, the question though is, have you found any validity in those comments that are saying I've been double charged?
No, I have not found anyone who's double charged. People went about 6 weeks, some went almost 8 weeks without a bill. And so some of them came in and paid in advance of their bill, and some of them already had past due, and so it cleared the past due, but not. We've had those kind of issues. I've had about 5 of those cases. When you sit down and actually show them all the billing and all the registers and everything, then they understand they weren't double billed. So, but if you have specific individuals, I would be more than happy to look into their cases myself.
Okay, so I should refer them directly to you?
Yeah.
Or anyone on council should?
Yeah,
Great.
I would be happy to research them. Thank you.
We had an opportunity to speak about this, so the point was that all these loose ends are tied up this month, and if any fall through, then that's why the 25% was split up over 2 months.
That's correct.
Just to make sure that, and if they don't have an anomaly or anything on their bill, then still yet, I think it's okay for us to say, we're gonna give you 12.5% reduction in your bill because of the things that happened throughout the past 2 months. So that's why it was spread out.
But this will be such a cleaner, I mean, the progress is a process is one thing we like to say. Moving forward with this system will be a much more advanced from the 1997 software that was in place. But that transition to get there, it's been a challenge, but it will be a much better system and user friendly. This was the only place that I wrote a check when I moved to Republic. And everything else I did online. So this moving to our community to an online experience, being able to get that done so much easier without having to go through that will be easier. The biggest challenge is twofold. Those bills went beyond 30 days into an extreme measure. It got on top of that system and it just kept building. But 2, when the phone rang, there was no one to answer the phone. And that just is, that's the pieces that we've got to continue to work on. And it exposed and helped, it will only make us stronger. But I believe we need to push out a message that says, hey, we missed it. So we'll just continue to work on that. But I appreciate your consideration.
Anything else from council? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you.
Moving on, you have in front of you a new resolution. Kind of explain, this is not on the agenda, and the Sunshine Law allows us to add an agenda item at the meeting as long as we're we're not changing policy, or if it wasn't practical for us to get it on the agenda. The reason this was not practical, I'll explain a portion of it, but we need to approve putting it on the agenda and open the resolution prior to talking too much about it. So, this was something the State Highway and Transportation Commission decided to do. We found out about it Monday. So we obviously didn't have time to put it on the agenda, and they're voting on it tomorrow, which leaves us 0 time. So that's why we wanted to discuss it today. So the resolution is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, opposing changing the current MoDOT funding allocation proposed by the Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission. So we have to do this twice. In order to put it on the agenda and speak about it tonight, I would ask if there's a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0 now. It is placed on the agenda, and I will read, we'd like to hand these out to the citizens in the crowd so that everyone can see what we're talking about. I'll wait for Mr. Icy to get back. Give you some opportunity. Okay, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Republic, Missouri, opposing changing the current MoDOT funding allocation proposed by the Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission. I need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Have a motion and a second. Okay, so how this started was we found out Monday from the OTO that the Missouri Highway and Transportation Commission funding allocation, they had a funding allocation workshop, and in that workshop, they decided to reallocate $8 to $10 million that would have been used in the OTO in this region, which has a heavy impact on our future growth. We've made decisions as a council based on the assumption that we were going to be working side by side and some of those things would be fixed. This would effectively leave $5 to $7 million for the entire region annually. To give you an idea, the Highway 174 and 60 project would be $3 million. So that is not reasonable nor feasible for a growing community to be strangled and the funds taken away from the very mechanism that helps us improve our highways and move forward. So, as the other problem we have with it is that the OTO just found out about it. None of the stakeholders were given any input into this decision. This commission, also making this decision, does not give anyone a chance to debate this on the House floor. Doesn't give the Senate a chance to look at it. It's reallocating funds within a current budget. So we didn't get to have any input. The last thing I would say is, other than taking a huge amount of money out of this region for our highways, is that it's on the agenda. OTO had to call and ask what it was because it wasn't descriptive. It was not put out for public consumption, so the citizens that are affected by it had no idea, which is what we're trying to do tonight, is shed some light on it. And there is a section for public comment at their meeting, which is after they vote on this agenda item. So that would be like us having a public hearing after we voted on a zoning issue. It doesn't do a whole lot of good. So I have been in contact with the governor's office today, with the presiding commissioner, with the Senate, with the House representatives. We have voiced our concern, also with the mayor of Nixon, Mayor of Ozark, and we just want to make sure that we have an opportunity to tell this commission that we do not approve of this. We should have been notified of it. We should have had a seat at the table because it affects us dramatically, and that it's just not okay to do this. So, Mr. Campbell.
Well, I mean, I would just echo what you're saying is I serve on the OTO executive board. Our staff serves on the transportation improvement. What is it? TIP? What is it called? I missed it. But anyway, we are very engaged. We've been working, as you know, I've been communicating with this board, this council, about what the steps have been taken and the momentum that we've received towards some of our funding projects. So when you think of 60 and 174, you think of widening 60 from 2 lanes to 3 lanes. We've turned down development with the anticipation of potential ideas that would happen on the 60 corridor. Even James River, I-44 improvements need to be made. Reducing from $16 million a year down to potentially, losing 10 down to 6, and having no remedy for it. But this is, I believe the governor rolled out a new bill that was going to take care of bridges and things throughout the state, but it's moving those dollars from a urban area to a rural area, and it's none of us even had any idea that this was taking place until, I mean, I didn't even find out until today that this was the funding allocation. And so somewhere, we at least need to make our voice known that as a region, that this is gonna be almost like catastrophic as to what we're doing, because we got an intersection that's at 113% capacity, and now we're gonna be competing for a $6 million pool every year. And you got Nixon Ozark growing, you got I-44 challenges that have been very well discussed. I think that need is $60 million. And so we know of our own capacity issues just to address the MM60 corridor, talking about an overpass and things of that nature. This just pushes us into a corner where the citizens of the community are going to have to come up with a funding mechanism to take care of it themselves. When we had one in place that took care of it, that we could partner with someone. And so you've got a metropolitan planning organization that governs these things. And so it's very disheartening that number one, we're not allowed to talk about it. But two, the impact that it has on our economic vitality of our region. So definitely a difficult situation, and just kind of want to make our voice be heard that we'd appreciate their consideration just to pull back on this and allow us to comment and talk about the negative impact that it will have. But
and additionally, this is not the way government's supposed to work. I mean, lawmakers at some point approved funding knowing that a certain amount went to these organizations, and for a commission to arbitrarily decide to remove that funding or reallocate it without any stakeholder information is not right. It should not be happening. So open it up to council for discussion.
So this resolution is more or less a symbolic voice.
it
for our
is.
community. Okay.
Yeah, it's as a council, in relation to representing the citizens and the impact it could have. We're together saying that we oppose this, and this resolution, if approved, would then be sent to that commission to say, as a community, we oppose this.
Well, they'll get this before they vote.
Yes, well, we'll send it
Hopefully.
tonight.
It'll be sent tonight. What they do with it, obviously, is up to them, but we're gonna send it, and we will also make sure that the governor gets a copy of it and goes in the Senate and House Representatives.
Or other cities also sending resolutions?
We were the fastest to act because I think we're probably the one that had a meeting. I got with Scott and just thought this would be a way to express it, but I've not heard anybody else that's doing it because I don't know anybody's meeting tonight. I mean, the timing of it was just like, you want to just call somebody, you like fix it. So no, I'm not aware of anyone, but I have shared it with the other communities.
We have also asked the governor's office and the House Representatives to lobby to allow public input prior to the vote. And if that's the case, Mr. Cameron would go to Jefferson City tomorrow and voice opposition. I mean, that's the right way. We want to be able to do it that way, but if you have the public input after the vote, it's really not worth us sending Mr. Cameron up there because they've already voted. It's strange. So any other discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries 8-0. We will make sure that they get a signed copy of this tonight. Moving on to the financial report. Ms. Parks.
Well, tonight, the finance report, we're going to start off with the draft 2018 financial statements. And I say that they're draft because the reporting that I'm required and I do deliver is on a budgetary basis, which is a modified accrual basis. When our auditor comes in, he gives you the full accrual presentation. And so the final 2018 financials will be given to you at the audit presentation, where he actually puts in all the bond interest and fees and does the full accrual accounting on depreciation. If I was to add that in right now, what it would happen is when we're trying to budget in future years, we wouldn't see the true expense that we paid out on the checkbooks. It would move it out to payable accounts. And so that's why I'll present you this draft, and then we'll present you the full accrual version of the citywide financials in the audit. So basically, I would like to share what we sort of shared at the last meeting, that our January sales revenue from our basic sales taxes were up about 12.38% over the January of this time last year sales receipts. I did not get the February and in time. I was also going to try to put those in, but they get delivered tomorrow. That was a very good report. On our year-end fund cash balance statement, you will see that our operating unrestricted cash fund balance for the general fund ended at $2,392,034.16. That is a very healthy unrestricted fund balance for the general fund. I will explain how we got there when we get to the financial statements. Out of that, before I finalized the cash pool report, what I did is I transferred some funds and created a new reserve account called the Building Safety Reserve. This is for the Community Development Department. This is building permit revenue that comes in that is designated to fund the building program, the code enforcement, the building permit processes, and it came in over our expenses. So therefore, since it's really to be used for that purpose, we have placed it in a reserve account to be used in future years if there should be an economic downturn or if we need to expand that department. Also, I have moved out of the street cash. You will see a $515,497.17 new account called SP Urban Match. This is the loan that we took out to match our SDP Urban project, which is the Oakwood and Hines. We did not expend all the expenses in that year this year, so I went ahead and put those back designated. As we expend them, I will transfer them back up to unrestricted cash. Overall, we had $10,777,927 in total cash for the city. Two of those accounts, of course, are in an investment account, and those are designated as the UMB SRF accounts. When we get over to the budget to actual report, I had difficulty this evening printing the 100 fund in the format I normally print it, so I went ahead and gave the older format. Basically, the general fund, we ended up with $7,731,307 worth of revenue. We came in at $7,032,047.61 in expenses. So that translates into a net gain for the general fund of $699,260. This is because we had an increase in revenues that came in higher than projected. We also came in under spending in most of our departments. And several of our capital projects did not come in this fiscal year. One of them was the $24,000 for the wireless network and also the $90,000 for the phone system, which was rolled to this year. I have transferred the funds designated for those two projects to the reserve account, and if those projects are completed this year, we will transfer it out of the reserve account. Going on to the other funds, the parks was $3,365,161 in revenue, $3,327,049 in expenses, and so they had a net gain of $38,112. We did not do the transfer that they had budgeted for the reserves at this time since they came in over budget on the revenues. The street came in at $1,974,056 in revenues, $2,140,456 in expenditures. As you know, we had budgeted a lot different scenario, but that's because our SDP project, the Oakwood and Hines, got rolled over to partial 2019 expenditures, and those reimbursements, that revenue we had budgeted will be next year. We came in with a net deficit of $166,399, but that is expected. We'd actually budgeted a larger deficit in that fund. And when I mean deficit, meaning using our unrestricted fund cash balance. The water revenue, which we were discussing a little bit earlier, was $1,864,680. This part of the implementation, we'll defer the revenue for November. Of course, we didn't collect it until January and February, so the auditor will adjust it back to this current time period. So it'll be higher when the audited financials come out for the revenue. The expenditures were $2,045,443, and that ended up with a deficit of $180,763 on the water fund, but we had actually projected, because of the comprehensive plan, a $400,000 deficit, so we came in under that as well. Of other note that I want to point out is the wastewater fund was $3,253,319 in revenue, $3,415,977 in expenditures, with a deficit of $162,657, and that also had a lot higher deficit budgeted because of the comprehensive plan. So overall, we came in every department under budget, and our revenues, except for the street fund and water fund, like we discussed, a little bit higher than projected. That brings me down to the utility billing issues that we addressed earlier. I will just let you know that we have conducted a thorough SWOT analysis. I've worked with administration to identify areas that need to be improved, and we will be working diligently, as my staff has been through this crisis. But now that we're on the other side of the implementation and things are resolving, and the water fund is helping get the other side straightened up, we are starting the phase of actually getting things running, and citizens should hopefully see things a lot smoother in our utility department. But once again, I would like to encourage you, if you have anyone, please contact me directly, and I'll make sure that their accounts are researched and expedited in answer to them. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, discussion from council? Seeing nothing, need a motion and a second for approval of the financial report.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to reports from staff, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First and foremost, I want to thank you again for the consideration for the utility billing. And so, Debbie, I thank you for your work, Andrew, for your work to kind of get this thing on course, and I appreciate the effort that was taken. If you get a chance to look at the improvements we've made to the utility billing area for our customers, take a look at those tonight, or as you come in to look at your utility bills. The work they did has been very, very good, and I appreciate the work that was done to expedite it, get it done, and that should be very good. In front of you tonight is the first annual report. I'm very excited for this, kind of our state of the city. It pretty much is a document that we have, one that from the day I arrived that I was very anxious and very looking forward to seeing us put before our community. This is something that will roll out this week that'll go into the mail for every customer on our utility billing system. So looking forward to this going out in more of a magazine style. So please take a look at it. But Mike, thank you for the work that was done, for all the staff that put it in there. But all the formatting, the picture work, all that has been done through Mike Landis, and I think he's done an outstanding job with this product. We're also going to be rolling out a customer service guide in roughly, April we're talking about doing that. So there'll be more to come on the customer service guide. Also, the first public meeting that will take place will be next Tuesday night to discuss the sales tax in April. So basically, we'll be hosting that at 6 o'clock next Tuesday night at Fire Station Number 1, where I'll be presenting the information, educating, not advocating, the issues surrounding that issue. And so looking forward to getting out in front of the community. We have some information that we're going to be mailing out to the community, I believe next week. It will also provide information regarding that initiative. So looking forward to having that discussion. Also at the next meeting, there will be a public workshop, or a workshop before the council meeting, to discuss the update on the comprehensive plan. And tonight I asked Garrett to put together, it's about a minute, 30-second teaser that he put together himself. And it talks about the messaging that, working with Mike, called SOAR 2040, talks about our comprehensive plan. And I just wanted Garrett to roll out. It's something that when I saw it today, it brought a lot of attention, and just made me proud of where we're going as a community. Just kind of a good idea of what it's going to look like as we move forward. So please indulge us for about a minute, 30 seconds.
Is the projector on?
Oh, so much. Make sure this.
Maybe the flip them. Like maybe that might be off.
Can you see what you're doing?
Mama said, fulfill the prophecy, be something greater. Go make a legacy, manifest destiny. Back in the days we wanted everything, wanted everything. Mama said, burn your biographies, rewrite your history. Light up your wildest dreams, museum victories. Every day we wanted everything, wanted everything. Mama said, don't give up, it's a little complicated. All tied up, no more love, and I hate to see you waiting. Had to have high hopes for a living, shooting for the stars, but I couldn't make a killing. Didn't have a dime, but I always had a vision, always had high hopes. Had to have high hopes for a living, didn't know how, but I always had a feeling I was gonna be that one in a million. Always had high hopes.
Isn't that awesome?
That was good.
So we're excited about the comprehensive plan, but I just think that messaging and so what's going on in our community is just pretty exciting, and the stuff that our team and our employees are putting together is just really exciting to see where we're at and where we're going. But the excitement that's a part of that and bringing the community into that, I think that Garrett did a fantastic job of capturing that in that little minute and 30-second teaser. So I wanted to share that tonight. I'm looking forward to sharing that at the next chamber event as well as part of just our overall marketing and messaging. I think that'd be something cool to play for our community to be proud of. So it encapsulates all that we do. So Mr. Mayor, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you guys, the council's consideration on that resolution that we brought up. I know it's, as John said, it's kind of a symbolic thing, but it means a lot when a council adopts a resolution to say we don't agree with something. And I think that was something very worthy of doing that. Some new staff we have in human resources. Jenna Bishop is hired as a part-time HR assistant, so welcome to the city. And then finance has hired Amber Long as a city accountant working in utility billing. And then the police department has hired Mr. James Benny Stevenson as a new police officer, and Dustin Lowry as a part-time police technician who's actually in the police academy and set to graduate in May. So it's good to cultivate some people that way so that we get them on board. I know what Chief Sells is thinking. Get him in the door and get him doing something, then he won't be able to leave, right? Okay. So, welcome to Flat Creek. They opened today. I know that they've been doing really good business, and I think we all know why. If you've eaten there, it's really good. But I don't think I had anything else, so I'm gonna move on. And Mr. Franklin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really appreciate everything that has gone into all of this, especially I'm big on stats, and I love anything I can read to learn about Republic. So Mr. Landis, thank you very much for the annual report. Thank you for that video. That's very inspiring, makes me feel good to live in Republic, and especially at Flat Creek, Panda Express, a lot of great opportunities and expansion opportunities for citizens in Republic. So just a great time to live in Republic, and I'm excited for the future.
Thank you, Mr. Ann.
Great job on the annual report, finance report. I mean, I think that the citizens can see that Republic is growing. I mean, we're killing it in all of those aspects. So I just want to thank you all for all the hard work that you do. It's really, really appreciated. Debbie, you know I love my report, so thank you. That's it. Thanks for the resolution. That's awesome to be on top of it like you guys are. I really appreciate that.
Mr. Russell.
I want to talk about the resolution. You roll into work on a Monday morning thinking you're going to do one thing, and you get an email that completely derails everything. It's like a gut punch. And what you did was stand up to them. And that's thinking outside the box, coming up with this. I know who typed this up. This is not an easy thing to do. This was well thought out, and I don't know if it's going to matter, but I'd like to think it will. And at least we're trying. So thank you for doing that. And that video was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Mr. Dyken.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to, the staff, with everything they've had to go through this last couple of months with, the mold abatement, and then having to move out for that, then move out for remodeling, and the problems with, the utility building and handling it, I think they've done a great job. And I, just can't say enough about our staff. They're great.
Mr. Bashir.
I want to thank staff for the positive approach to this water situation. We probably all had calls, and having the decrease in the bill helps some. But again, it tells them that we're trying to do the right thing, or at least the best that we can. Jared, great job on that video. I do videos sometimes, and I know you spent at least an hour or two on that. It could have been 10 or 20 hours. It's unbelievable the time it takes to do a video. Also, I had some friends that took their daughters to the Valentine dance. I believe there was 800 a good number?
About 9?
900. So you guys are in charge of that. That's so special when you have a daughter and you take them to a father and daughter dance. So I heard it was exceptional.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Jones.
Yeah, that event, I think I've shared in years past. I was at the first one, and there were about 12 dads in the cafeteria at what is now Price Elementary School. So that was, we had drinks out of the thermos.
But
I'm not kidding.
You
It
had
was
plenty.
awesome.
You had plenty of room to dance.
That's right. Oh, we did. Yeah. So great memories from that. So good job. I guess I have just a quick question for Mr. Cameron or anyone that can they just kind of the next stages of the Heinz Oakwood and the Oakwood progress and what's going on there.
There's the man.
Yeah. The weather obviously has been a little bit of a challenge. So when it kind of turned, I guess, to the worst part of the winter, they moved out, and I was supportive of that because I didn't want the road closed with no work going on. It just didn't really make sense. And when I say road, I mean Oakwood. So we've talked to them. It looks like probably in the next week or two, depending on the weather, they're going to move back in. You'll see a closure between Pinewood and 174, basically. Farm Road 174 is the next phase. It'll be Oakwood only. The intersection remains open, which is a lot less of a headache for most everyone. They'll move in, and the next two phases will be much faster, much simpler to execute because of the utilities. So I would expect probably in middle into April to be completely done, hopefully.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Well, I'd like to thank the water department and the meter readers. I know they had a rough time of it. I even saw them out a couple of Sundays ago working, trying to get caught up. So appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Self.
Ditto to everybody that's coming, but also Jared gave a presentation today to the chamber, and I just want to thank him for one, being prepared, giving very informative information there, having all those boards present, the visual helps, so just want to add that to the list of all the good vibes. So.
All right. Sorry, you have to do this. Nothing else, I'll ask to go into executive session. No further action other than announcing adjournment by the mayor shall take place after an executive session. That is scheduled as the last matter on the agenda, unless otherwise stated on the agenda, or as allowed per RSMO 610.02. Tonight we'll be covering RSMO 610.021.3, hiring, firing, promotion, or disciplining personnel. Closed session, closed vote, closed record. Ask for a motion and a second to go into executive session.
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second, roll call vote.
Councilmember Jones. Councilmember Brashears.
Aye.
Councilmember Self.
Aye.
Councilmember Dykeman.
Aye.
Councilmember Russell.
Aye.
Councilmember Duran.
Aye.
Councilmember Franklin.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. We'll take a 5-minute recess during regular session and we'll go into executive. So before long, I will be able to read that without, or say that without having to read it.